Welcome to Dr. Mary Travel Best's 5 Steps to Solo Travel Guide for women like you who need a little extra support traveling the world, one woman at a time. I've been traveling independently since 1972, so please share this podcast with your friends, your loved ones, and other future travelers to help make their trips the very best. In this episode, the FAQ is, what are the 3 best lighthouses to visit in California? The destination is a road trip from Durango to Phoenix, Arizona. Today's mistake, I should have used sunscreen on my neck. And travel advice is to use folding bags if you're traveling in a van. So here's the FAQ. I was asked by a friend, what are the 3 best lighthouses to visit in California? And here's the answer. In my opinion, the best lighthouses must include Cabrillo National Monument in Point Loma, San Diego. I'll do an episode on that lighthouse soon. My second favorite is Alcatraz Island Lighthouse in San Francisco Bay. It's located at the southern end of the island, which is famous for the Alcatraz prison. It was the first lighthouse on the west coast of California and built in 1854 with 1.5 million visitors per year. My third favorite lighthouse is Battery Point Lighthouse in Crescent City. That's in Northern California. It was constructed in 1856. It doesn't have a towering column. It looks more like a house with a light on top of it. And you can get guided tours from 10 a till 4 p, especially during low tide. It's not accessible during high tide. So you can take pictures of it from Battery Point Beach. And the reason I chose this is because a relative had a collection of lighthouses that I can remember seeing when I was in Crescent City about 20 years ago. And now for the destination. This is part 2 of Durango. This is a solo road trip from Durango, Colorado to Phoenix, Arizona. Now, the first place that catches your eye is the UNESCO World Heritage Mesa Verde National Park when you drive west from Durango. I would love to stop there next time to see the Ancestral Puebloan cliff dwellings. This is on my list of places to visit on my next trip there. I want to see 700 years of culture in a half a day. I had to get going, though. So I continued on to Cortez, Colorado. The marathon station there wouldn't take my credit card, so I guess I didn't need gas anyway. I just kept going. I did notice that the Utes had settled many years ago. I enjoyed the drive. I saw cows and farmland, trucks, RVs, and campers. As I drove west, I hit the Junction Highway 41, Welcome to Arizona sign. Hovenweep caught my attention. I did a little detour about 15 miles in that direction, and then I turned around. It may have been a lot further, but I was determined to get to Phoenix. This whole area kind of reminded me of outer space-like. It had desert shapes and circular patterns, and it was really amazing. Now, I did notice that Shiprock was in the distance. And finally, I got to 4 Corners. That was where Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah meet up. Check the show notes for more information about that. I ended up in Monument Valley, Arizona, where both sides of the freeway, for like 25 miles, they had these beautiful monuments. Now, one of the little towns nearby is called Kayenta. Beautiful blue skies there, lots of vistas between the monuments, good roads, and the speed was between 50 and 65 miles an hour. However, the wind was blowing across the highway. I'll tell you a little more about that later. But this place reminded me of Forrest Gump, that Tom Hanks movie, where he was running along the road and then he just stops. It reminds me of that road. That was a movie back in 1994, and he did an ultra marathon, and then he just ended up in this beautiful valley. So the show notes have some details on that film. So I was headed on Highway 160, 1 lane in each direction for most of the drive. Lots of churches, as I mentioned, farmland, the Navajo Nation. It's kind of a big little city for this area, protecting the sacred lands. There's a lot of history from ancestors. There's campgrounds. There's a good feel for the area for the visitor. I even saw a shopping center with an Ace Hardware and a McDonald's. And then I stopped in Tuba City. It had a Sinclair gas station. But the station, I couldn't get the hose out of my car, and I had to get an attendant to help me with that. He said he had the same problem yesterday, so I didn't feel so bad, but finally got the hose out of my gas tank. Now, I was driving here through a very windy area. There was like mini sandstorms. They were blowing across the road, and people had their headlights in the middle of the day. I was thinking this would be a good place to put a wind turbine. So what did the mountains look like? They were striped. They had striations on these mountains. And I was about 80 miles from Flagstaff. Again, I saw some horses and farms, but there really wasn't very much. It kind of reminded me of the Wild West. I'm thinking maybe some Hollywood movies were made here, and probably some commercials too. I mentioned the Navajos and the Utes. There's also the Hopi Indian tribes. It's their sacred land still. It reminded me a little bit of South Dakota's Badlands, just with a lighter shade of pink and brown, almost golden and maroon in some areas of the stripes. Now, the northern Arizona mountains to the west showed in the distance, but it was a ways away still. And the next town that I came up upon was Cameron. My last stops were in Sedona, Arizona, which I'm going to feature on an upcoming episode. Definitely worth the views, especially if you're driving south, if possible, through Sedona to Phoenix. And now for today's mistake. Not enough sunscreen on my neck. This year, I had skin cancer removed from my neck. It was squamish, so not melanoma. Don't forget your neck when you apply lotion, and cover up when you can. I made the mistake about that for many years, so you can get started at any time with this healthy behavior. Now, it's likely partly genetic and partly from the environment, as I'm told. I'm not a medical doctor, so seek advice from yours. And now for today's travel tip. If you're traveling in a van, use folding bags. Most times you're going to use a suitcase when you travel, right? But if you're going somewhere in a van or minivan, you could also use bags that fold to save you space. You don't always want to have a large suitcase because you don't have anywhere to store it. So if you use cloth or sturdy bags to put your things in, then you can fold them up. I want to bring meaning to your travels. So send a question or travel tip to info@drmarytravelbest.com. We can connect on my website, Facebook page, group, or Instagram, and you can subscribe on YouTube. You can also ping me on Twitter. Find 5 Steps to Solar Travel on Amazon.
What's on your travel bucket list? Tell the doctor and her team of women who travel the world seeking the very best. Dr. Travel Best, that is.